Okay, Mr.
Right.
Khan, it's
Yeah.
recording
And I'm
and
going to start the note taker too. Hi. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining at 6 o'clock on a Friday. Because I'm sure you can't imagine anything else better to be doing right now, right? Um, okay. So thank you both, Rebecca and Maggie, for joining us tonight and for putting your cards in the hat here for this parent elected Board of Trustee position. We have 6 questions that we're going to go through tonight. We're going to give each candidate 3 minutes to answer their question, and then we'll just go back and forth. The first question, I'm going to start with Rebecca, then I'm going to switch over to you, Maggie, and then the second question, Maggie, you'll go first, and then Rebecca, and then we'll just go back and forth. Okay?
Okay.
Awesome. All
and
right.
Mr. Khan, I
Yes.
can do the timing with the 3 minutes.
Sure.
And when it gets to maybe 2.5, should I just wave so that you know it's 2.5 minutes? So,
Perfect.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I think that works. And we're not like sticklers, so just finish your thoughts, right? That's the point. Okay, all right. First question. What is your motivation to run for the parent board representative position, and what are your qualifications? So we'll start with Rebecca.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to everybody who's here. Again, it's a Friday at 6, so thanks for being here. Um, and my motivation is very simple. I care deeply about the school and its future. My son is a fourth grader here, and so we've been a part of this community since kindergarten. And over those years, we've watched the school go from this sort of promising option that we had, that we were excited about but didn't know a lot about when we started, and it's turned into, or continued to strengthen into, a thriving public charter school that serves an increasingly diverse student body. um, and so, as both a parent and a board member, I have this very strong appreciation for what makes it special and what challenges we have. Professionally, I'm a litigation attorney. That People always ask, what kind of law do you do? And I always say it's very boring. But it does require me to analyze complex issues, review complex stuff, and ask questions and make decisions based on evidence. Um, and I'm basically a trial attorney, so I'm often kind of making an argument for one thing or another. But I'm also a mediator. So I'm, you know, try to try to be neutral and bring a balanced kind of approach to decision making. During my time on the board, we have overseen pretty significant growth and navigated some very important strategic decisions. I think the school's foundation has become stronger. I'm seeking another term just because I believe continuity is good, especially as we've got that inertia going. And we've got some ambitious goals. And I'd like to be a part of that. But I think most importantly, I think Gertut needs to be true to its purpose as a public charter. Our responsibility is to serve families who are here, but also in the future. And so I could go on and on, but that is basically it. Thank you.
Okay. Maggie, do you need me to repeat it or you're good?
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you. Hello everyone. I'm Maggie Chanon. Just want to echo first, it is 6 o'clock on a Friday, so thank you for being here. And those of you who are listening afterwards, thank you for listening. Okay, starting with my motivation. We've been a part of the Goethe community for 6 years. We actually started with my oldest, who's in fifth grade, in COVID. And what I think is interesting about starting as COVID is that you kind of didn't get the full experience. But what I would say that I was able to see through COVID learning is the IB curriculum. So I have true appreciation for the IB curriculum. And then when we returned after COVID, what I would say is what I experienced is what I was hopeful for was a community who would welcome us with open arms. And what other my motivation is that what I saw and what I continuously see even to today with the text messages about the gardening class that was happening is the dedication of our parents and the time and the effort that they've put in through garden, through the GPA, through the fundraising, through the events. I would say my motivation is that I've wanted to give back to Goethe in a way that was meaningful. And I've seen board representatives positions open up, and I just don't think that the timing was right for me. And so when I saw it came like open up last week, I was like, this is the right time. I feel it's the right place. And I think it's my time to give my perspective and the effort that many of our parents have been giving. And so that's my motivation is to give back in ways that other people have to a community that I think has really allowed my kids, one's in fifth grade and one is in first grade, to thrive. My qualifications is I'm an educator. I have 17 years in schools, 15 in the classroom, so classroom teacher. Some of that time I was a leader, so I have 10 years of leadership. My most current role is I'm the upper school director at Archer School for Girls, which I would say is equivalent to a principal position at Goethe. And I know what it means and I know what it takes to have a successful school. So, as a board representative, what I would be bringing is my perspective as a parent of two vastly diverse students. I love each of them, but they're very different if you know them. But also what it means to run a successful school. And so that would be my qualifications and my motivations.
Okay, thank you. Vicky, am I doing all the questions or are you doing
Yeah,
those?
why not?
Oh, sure. Okay. All right. Now, second question. As a board member, how would you support the recruitment and retention of quality staff? And then there's a part two, which is how would you support the efforts to close the achievement gap? And Maggie.
All right. I love this question. I have actually run workshops, year-long workshops on professional development and retention, spoken of national conferences. So I could speak for hours, but I'm going to try to condense it to like 1.5 minutes so I can hit both parts. Um, what teachers need is teachers need to be seen, known, and valued. So teachers need to be seen. I think it's important that teachers have their administrators in their classrooms. They're observing. They are known. Are they a part of the professional development? Are they leading professional development? Do we have internal professional development? And then are teachers valued? Now, valued for their time spent. I mean, teachers go into education not to make millions of dollars, but because they have a love for students, a love for the content, a love for educating and growing students grow. So they need to be valued for their time, but a lot of that is also money. So where retention comes in is that teachers need to feel seen, known, and valued, and monetary compensation needs to be equivalent. Now, we're living in LA, and so being mindful of how we can compensate them to the best of our abilities as a school. And then the second part is closing the achievement gap. And I kind of want to first debunk that we oftentimes don't use closing the achievement gap because what it implies is that the students are maybe lacking or failing. So I kind of want to rephrase it to how do we support a structure that can help students thrive and meet them where they're at? And so if I'm thinking about how to meet students where they're at, whether they are neurodivergent, whether they've had a lack of exposure to content, no fault to their own, or maybe there's a lack of structure outside of school. And so early intervention, benchmarking tests that not only happen once a year, but also have multiple different um, elements to that benchmarking. I think meeting the students where they are at, whether that is they are neurodivergent and they need an IEP or a 504, they may need pullout. And so I want to make sure that these students are feeling as though they belong. I was actually just talking to a researcher at Stanford through Challenge Success, and what they were talking about is that belonging actually can influences engagement, and engagement influences the success. And so starting at all of these different interim points, depending on what the student is. Again, it goes back to why do we have schools? Is to serve our students.
Okay, time's up.
Thank you. All right, Rebecca.
Okay, so first part of the question, I'm going to read it just to kind of reframe myself. But as a board member, how would I support the recruitment and retention of quality staff? I agree that retention is key and that money is a big part of that. I think that financial stability is a very large part of what informs that. So I think the board's support of financial stability and financial growth is kind of key to being able to achieve that on a long-term and responsible basis. Anyone who was at the last board meeting kind of heard my spiel about remaining competitive with things that are happening in LAUSD and in other schools. And while we may not be seen as a competitor necessarily to other schools, I've compared us to a free private school, and I think we're actually something different and kind of even more important than that, which is not to disparage any educational system, but I think that Goethe is special because we provide that intense quality education that a lot of people have to pay for, and if they can't pay for it, they don't get it, and we are able to provide it. And so I want, through the board, I would want to support the financial stability to retain the teachers that are providing that excellent environment that so many people are benefiting from that may not otherwise have access to it. With respect, and so that is, I think for me, compensation is sort of one of the main, if not the main, pillars of retention. And that's what I would want to keep focusing on with respect to board activity. And how the second part of the question, the closing of the achievement gap, I want to say that I really do appreciate that reframing by Maggie of it being sort of meeting students where they're at. Anyone who knows me and who knew me running last time and who knows kind of my commentary throughout meetings knows that this is a issue that is particularly special to me. My particular focus is early intervention. And through personal experience, through members of my family, have really seen what an enormous impact robust early intervention can have. And so I think that the board should support continuing to invest in like early screening, evidence-based reading intervention in particular, and services identifying students. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Rebecca, this one would be for you first. So as a board member, how would you foster transparency amongst board member interactions and how the board relays information to the community?
Okay, well, I think trust is built through being transparent. I think board members should continue to encourage compliance following all Brown Act governance. Because we are a taxpayer funded organization, we have to comply with the Brown Act, which requires us to communicate in public about decisions that we're making. And there's all sorts of kind of rules and parameters around that. And that's because we are entrusted. We have an enormous responsibility to the taxpayers that entrust us with that money and also to the community of the schools. So I think being transparent is kind of key in our duties. I think that we should continue to have our meetings be well run, well organized, and I think maybe better noticed. I think attendance at board meetings, I know they're boring sometimes, but there is always an opportunity for speaking, as parents in the community or as teachers. Anyone is available, any member of the public is available to come, or able to come and speak. And so I would like to continue to encourage more attendance. The attendance has shot up. Thanks a lot in part to my co-trustee Denise, I think has really been promoting that really strongly. And I love to see more squares on these Zooms every single meeting, because it means that people know what's going on. They know how the wheels are turning of board governance and school development. And that is a huge part of the transparency of how we're able to interact with the community. And lastly, I think it also requires some humility on the part of the board in listening to public comment, to encouraging it, to welcoming it, and responding to it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right.
Maggie.
I was gonna say, I don't think you need to read it. All right, so transparency, and then the second part, which is how does the board relay information to the community? So I definitely agree with everything that Rebecca was saying, just in terms of transparency, the Brown Act. I mean, ultimately, one of the amazing things about a charter is that we do follow the Brown Act, and there's purpose behind it, is that we want what the main decisions that are being made to be public. And I think also what's also really important is that we follow the procedures. So being able to have the agenda published, if there's comments that are made during it, do we add it to their next agenda? So making sure that we follow the procedures. But I think beyond that, the reality is that you're working within a group of five. And I think transparency and alignment among the board members, and making sure that when decisions or conversations that are happening, they're happening on Zoom, and there's no maybe side conversations or the pre-meeting conversations that are happening. And I think also, Rebecca, you kind of spoke to it, is that one of the benefits about having a group is group dynamic. I think having these diverse perspectives is extremely important, and I think it's okay to disagree. It's okay to speak up, and I think as long as we continuously make decisions that are mission aligned and have the students and the school's best interests at the heart of the decisions, I think everyone, no matter what, can get on board with that. And so making sure that when we do have the discussions, it's very transparent. Maybe I'm not seeing the data in the way that you're seeing it. Can you explain it? And so having that information and being able to have those honest conversations will lay that alignment, that foundation for the school's success. Now, how do we relay information? I think, the executive director is going to be the voice of the board. Your main role as an executive director is to take the foundation and to be communicating it to our community. And so I think having you be able to explain the why. No one's going to argue with a mission-driven, student-aligned decision. And so I think making sure that the communication is clear. I think the reality is that I am part of the parent community. And so making sure that if questions come up, I explain the why. And so making sure that the why and the decision is understood, everyone can get behind.
Okay, thank you. All right, question 5. So this one has two parts also, and it's a little bit meatier. So I'll read it, and Rebecca, you'll be going first. So, have you read the recently approved school's charter renewal document, and how do you propose GICS implements all of its components? And then part B is, what is your opinion about the two GICS goals of one, a material revision to add grades 9 through 12, and two, the school's having its own facility?
Okay, so the first part, about
The charter renewal. Yeah.
yes, yes. And I have, and a hearty thank you to yourself and Biggie and everyone that worked tirelessly on that. It was a very big achievement, and everybody should be proud of it. I think the implementation begins by kind of recognizing that it is not just a compliance um, document, but it's essentially a roadmap for where we're going. Um, and I think it's our responsibility as the board to, or I think it is the board's responsibility to ensure that the goals outlined in it are that we translate them, or that they are translated into obtainable steps, and that they the board works collaboratively to push that forward. And I think that probably most importantly, it needs to continue to remain focused on student outcomes and what's going on at the actual student level, because we need to ensure that experience and accessibility for our growing and diverse population. Um, let's see. And then the second part
Yeah,
is about
actually, Rebecca, Biggie, let's do 3 minutes each for this because
Okay,
and I'll do the same for you, Maggie,
awesome.
because I'm just like, wait a minute, this is like
It's a
a
lot.
lot.
so,
So,
so there are 1 minute and 15 seconds left.
okay,
So
so
for the same part then.
yeah, if
Okay.
you want to continue or if you want to move to the next one, you'll get a full 3 minutes.
I can, yeah, we can move to the next one. I kind
Okay.
of, yeah.
What's your opinion about the two goals, the material revision for grades 9 through 12, and then having our own facility?
I support both. I'm anxious to see both. I think that expansion into the high school arena would give us kind of the complete educational experience that I think would be attractive to a lot of families. I know it would be attractive to mine. One of the reasons I chose Goethe over other schools, different charters with excellent reputations that my son was lucky enough to, get an offer through their lotteries, was that Goethe went through eighth grade. And now that we have, the IB approval through eighth grade, also it's become even, I think, more of an attractive option for a lot of families, including my own. And I think that high school would only enhance that. And I I'm just very supportive of being able to do that. Now, having said that, I think it's really important that we retain the quality and the experience that people are looking to Goethe to provide, and the educational environment that it's known for. I think so to that, with that in mind, I think we should move forward when we are ready to do that. Um, and of course, I support strongly, getting our own facility. I think that's sort of the one of one of the top priorities, if not the top priority, in terms of making any of that happen. And it is sort of a chicken and an egg conundrum, but I think that that is a key component of figuring out how to make that long-term goal sustainable, is having our own facility.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Do you want me to read them, Maggie, or you're good?
No, I also just want to note, I think we skipped question number 4, but I'm happy to
Oh my
answer
God, you're
number 5.
absolutely right. Okay, we'll come back to it. Sorry.
No, I have the questions right in front of me. So, okay. So yes, did I read through the charter renewal? Yes, absolutely. We are actually, my school is actually going through accreditation process, and it's a very similar process. I've been through it 3 times already. So props to everyone who worked on it. It takes a lot of time and effort, data, and on top of your day-to-day. So appreciation for reading through it. Um, So the question talks about how would I propose to implement? I mean, I think in terms of implementing, it needs to be data-driven, mission aligned, and has multiple different checkpoints along the line. Specifically on student outcomes and achievement, I do think from my experience having a fifth grader and a first grader, your goals to having earlier intervention and benchmarks along the line. I've already seen that just from my fifth grader to my first grader. And so I think continuously evaluating the effectiveness of the implementations of professional development, reading and interventions, math curriculum. I think it is important to continuously assess, not just from one angle, but also in multiple different angles. In terms of professional development, I mean, look first to the amazing faculty that you have and how can you source or provide internal professional development. And so I do think that you're on the right, or I guess we are on the right direction in terms of implementing, but it takes time and it shouldn't be rushed. In terms of the second part of what is my opinion on the two goals with what is it? Adding grades and new facilities. Similar to what Rebecca said, I definitely think these are possible. I think one of the reasons why I loved the idea of Goethe was that it could potentially go through eighth grade. Even though I work at a sixth through 12th grade, it's definitely something that's very desirable is to have that. And I think in order to continue having the student experience rooted in that IB experience through 12th grade would be absolutely amazing. I think we've seen that you can add a middle school. So is it too far out of the reach? No, not necessarily, but should not be taken away from what we're able to provide to the middle school and the elementary school. In terms of the facilities, I definitely support that. I think in talking with friends that maybe have chosen other schools, other charter schools or independent schools, one of their big concerns, which I always try to like share, because we do, locate with the Marina Del Rey, they were hesitant for it. And I always tried to articulate, that their interactions are very minimal, but in terms of enrollment, especially because our revenue comes from headcount, some students are not choosing Art Goethe because of the location. And I think that should be a top priority. But I think also I haven't seen the strategic plan or the financials or how it's possible. And so in my opinion, yes, it would be great, but I would also want to see that it's implemented in a way that is financially stable.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go back to 4 and then we'll go to 6. So, Maggie, this is for you. How do you see the role of the Board of Trustees regarding the day-to-day operations of the school?
I like this question. That's why I was wanting to go back to it. What I see is that the board is like a foundation. It is charged with looking at a school's vision, strategic plan, risk management, financial stability. The executive director is the only person of the school that is directly employed essentially from our board. And so it's important that there's actually separation between the day-to-day operations and the board. So the board makes that foundation, but what we would need to do is trust in the executive director, trust in the administration team to see forward the vision that the board comes up with, or essentially the board is that accountability for the school. And I think trust in the executive director, trust in the administrative team to fulfill those goals is extremely important because what I've seen at a variety of different schools is that when there's not trust in the leadership, whether that is at an executive director role or a head of school or principal roles, is that that trust trickles down, or lack of trust could trickle down to the parents. And we want our parents, as I do, to respect the teachers, the administration. We want them to see the teachers and the administration truly as the professionals. And when a decision is made, know that it's in the best interest of the school. And so the board needs to lay that foundation for the administration team to fulfill it.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll be kind of restating, I think, a lot of what Maggie said, but I'll see if I can expand or touch on some different things. I think in the most fundamental distinction, I think, between the board and the day-to-day operations is that the board governs and the administration manages. And I know those kind of seem like synonyms, but as the board is a fiduciary, meaning that it has a duty to oversee the funds, to essentially govern the use of the school's resources. And that's why it itself is closely governed by a set of rules. Both of us kind of touched on it, the Brown Act. And the reason for that is because there has to be sort of this body that is charged with making those decisions, so that it is not vested in one person or in a smaller group of people. It is vested in a board that puts the mission of the school and the responsibilities of the board first, and that oversees the resources that, again, are taxpayer funds. So I think having those distinctions in place is kind of key. The board establishes a long-term strategic priorities, oversees finances, evaluates the actual performance of the school with the data that's provided by the administration, and ensures legal compliance and all of that stuff, and supports the administration, including the executive director, in the day-to-day of that. So the board provides kind of a long-term direction. The administration, they're the magicians that make it happen, and on a day-to-day. So I think a healthy relationship between the two is key, because I think each needs to know what the other is doing in order to make that relationship effective. But I think that keeping those, thank you, Biggie, keeping those silos clear is important as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, question 6. How do you think the financial stability and budget of our school can be ensured? And Maggie, this is for you first.
Well, one, I think it's extremely important that financial stability is ensured. I think from my perspective, and I would say I haven't spent too much time looking at the detailed reports or the minutes. However, I have looked at the most recent one, and from my math background, I can say that I'd be curious to see how we could have an increase in alternative sources of revenue, meaning that how can we have guaranteed revenue beyond headcount for attendance, beyond the fundraising, that the events that we do have. What I'm thinking about is how could the executive director be able to secure grants, endowments, partnerships that are not taxing the people that are already potentially giving for the foundation or for the fundraising. So one example that I would say like I've really benefited from is when Archer was much younger. So Archer School for Girls is the school that I teach at. And they were able to secure a grant from the E.E. Ford Foundation, and it's actually an endowment. And so Archer was able to receive that money, and instead of spending it immediately, what they've done is they've invested it. And so every year, math teachers can spend money specifically on professional development. And so what we're using is not the actual grant itself, but the interest that is being made from the endowment. And so that is guaranteed alternative sources of revenue that is lasting forever. And so if we can, use the fundraisers that we do have, but ultimately that's not 100% guaranteed. So looking at what are those alternative resources, whether that's in grants, whether that's in endowments, whether that's in partnerships, those are going to be what we can use as financial stability moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca?
Okay, so yes, also an issue near and dear to my heart. I think that as a public charter, financial stability begins with responsible governance. We need to do what we're doing, or do what the board keeps saying we, because I am on the board, but I am not I just want to be clear that I'm referring to the board as an entity. The board has to continue to do what it's doing in terms of having transparency around the finances, which lets everybody know kind of where we are. We have a great finance team and a board member who's very sort of proficient in all of those things, and lays it out pretty clearly. As a public school, the investment options are pretty conservative. We would be bound by some pretty conservative standards. But I totally agree that pursuing alternative sources is an important thing to keep pursuing and keep figuring out, because once we would be able to get a pretty good corpus, we would be able to generate some income just from that. But we don't have the flexibility maybe of some institutions in that respect. But there are definitely options that I think can be pursued. But I think that the financial stability aspect requires kind of the discipline that I think the board exhibits, which is, being conservative in its use of resources, and being creative in looking for alternative sources to bolster those resources. Because ultimately our goal as a school, and the board's goal, is to leave the next generation of students and families with a school that's academically strong and financially secure and accessible to everybody. And so I think that starts with thoughtful governance about the long term.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the last question, formal question for tonight. And I have one bonus question that I didn't add to the list that I'm going to ask now, and I think it's the most important one. I recently went to a retreat and they asked us this question, so I figured I should ask you guys. All right. So, if you could have one dessert for the rest of your life, and you could only have this dessert, no other dessert ever, just this one, what would it be and why? And whoever wants to go first can go first.
I have just a procedural objection that this question was not given to us before,
Well,
but
yeah, life throws curveballs.
I
This is like,
understand.
yeah,
But I also, just clarifying before Maggie or I have to bear
this is the
this.
lawyering. All
Does it
right,
have to
right.
be a dessert, or can it be something that I would eat for a dessert, but not necessarily most
Hmm.
people think it's a
The
dessert?
loophole. Okay, you can do that. Yes, it could be dessert-like
Okay.
or
Maggie,
dessert
if you want to go
adjacent.
first, that's cool. I have a multi-tiered answer that I can share.
You go for it.
Okay. It would be popcorn without question. I realize it's not, I'm more of a salty person. So it would be popcorn. But if I had to choose a dessert, it would be apple pie.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say the popcorn might have been like kettle corn, right? So it's like a little
No, absolutely
no.
not.
Oh, okay, wow. Like really? Okay, okay, apple pie. What about you, Maggie?
Okay, I'm gonna say I'm like no fun because I can't have gluten or dairy, and so that pretty much like crosses out all like very high quality desserts. But what I would say is that if I didn't have that restriction, like a warm chocolate chip cookie,
Mm.
in like a cast iron pan that's like right out from the oven with some like coconut cream on top.
Okay, very specific. I like that. That I think that works. So, all right. Thank you to both of our parent rep nominees for joining us today. The election is next week. So, thank you to everyone who is here, who listened in and took the time to be here tonight. And your participation does mean a lot. So, thank you for taking the time. And for both of you, thank you for throwing your hat out there and being courageous enough to do this. It's not easy, definitely not easy. And like we love participation. We want as many people to get involved as possible, and we can only get better and stronger and grow, especially with all these goals that we have. The more parents that get involved. So thank you to both of you, and thank you for everyone who joined us tonight.
One quick thing, maybe.
Yeah.
The ballots will be sent out Monday morning. It's scheduled to go out at 7 a.m. and the voting takes place between that morning Monday until Wednesday at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So for all those who are here, if you want to also give that to your friends and co-parents and whatsoever, that we have there also high participation.
Yeah. 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 And Biggie has like this whole magic number thing that each person has a specific number and it gets cross-referenced. So to maintain the integrity of this whole process. So thank you, Biggie, for taking that on every year. So all right. Well, I don't want to hold anybody up. It's dinner time. So thank you and have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.